Hello everyone, it's Taya here, your VPAX at the UPISU. So today we are doing our reports online because we had we canceled our last UPISU council meeting because of the weather. So if I'm looking away, it's because I'm reading off my phone right now. But with that, I'll get right into it. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the letter writing campaign that happened last week. I was busy facilitating that last week. It was our letter writing campaign in support of better mental health resources on campus. The campaign took place over 3 days, so that was February 6th to February 8th. And there were 2 booths set up on campus. There was one in McDougall and one in the Student Center. From 9 to 5 each of those 3 days. We were also facilitating some instructions online of how people could email letters to either the Premier, Minister, or MLAs. That was hosted on our UPISU website. Didn't get as many emails as I might have thought we would, but nonetheless it was great to see people engaging at the booths themselves. So I am really happy to report that we did surpass our goal of 500, and we sent a total of 517 letters to provincial MLAs. 513 of those letters were written or signed in person. It was really cool to see. I know, from my perspective at least, it felt really good to be engaging with students every day and seeing how many students were so passionate about this issue, and being able to engage students in a very tangible way in the advocacy work that we do. The letters have been sent off now. I'm actually getting some pictures, you might see them on social media, shared from some of our provincial MLAs, pictures of them reading all of their letters. So those were hand delivered because the postage for 517 stamps would have been awfully expensive, and in the interest of saving those student dollars, we decided to get them hand delivered. So we were able to drop them off to an internal mailing system within government, and they were able to take care of that for us, so that's awesome. So I will be following up with the Premier, relevant ministers, the Leader of the Opposition and Leader of the Third Party in the coming week to follow up with them after after they receive their letters, and hopefully the idea is that these letters will encourage further dialogue and hopefully push this issue forward more. So I'm going to be following up to continue lobbying on this, and hopefully we'll see some tangible results there. In the report that has been posted to the council site, and I'll ensure that it's somehow available to the student body as well, there are some links that I've provided to relevant documents that were used at the campaign booths to help facilitate the campaign. This is kind of just for information for people, in case they're curious what was available, but I have documents like the letter template that we used, the backgrounder / briefer document that we used to educate people about what the campaign's about, the who should I write to list, the mailing list, the quick facts, and also the guidelines for writing a letter to an MLA for those who wanted to write something personal. I'll provide those documents for everyone just in case you're curious. As well, I want to give a huge shout out to all the counselors and all the student volunteers who helped out at the campaign booths over this campaign. Could not have done this without you, and to people too who, especially those who stepped up last minute to fill in spots. I really, really appreciate the time that you put in, and to everyone who was going out there and trying to engage students as much as they can. I'm absolutely certain that we would not have had the success that we did if it weren't for everyone who volunteered at those booths, so thank you so much. With that, I'll move on to discussions of the CASA Partners Project. So you may remember at the last meeting, this was something I discussed, that the CASA Partners group had been in discussions about a new joint publication that we want to do. So USA, which is the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance, they prepared 2 different project proposals for some of the 2 themes that we had been discussing. So that was open educational resources and campus sexual violence. And I've provided a link as well to the proposals just in case people are curious. You can take a look at those. So then we had another conference call to discuss those proposals and to decide on which project we wanted to do. So after some deliberation, it was decided that a joint publication on the topic of campus sexual violence would be the most timely right now, given some of the current political climate and what's happening in different provinces in regards to in regards to the topic of campus sexual violence. A lot of provinces might have legislation already, but maybe they're working at, maybe it's time for that legislation to come into effect, or maybe some places are looking to implement legislation. We're all kind of in different spots, but either way, we felt it was probably best to get the campus sexual violence paper out first. But we are interested in doing another joint publication on the topic of open educational resources. Probably, I think in the summer is what we decided. So we'll do campus sexual violence first, then open educational resources. So basically, in terms of our contribution, each province is going to be submitting a paper of their own, around 3 to 4 pages for each submission. So Colin, he's our policy and research coordinator. Him and I will be working over the next couple months to prepare PEI's submission. And right now, the joint publication is tentatively scheduled to be released publicly April 23rd. So yeah, that's kind of the timeline we're working with right now. Then I have some updates as well on the Sexual Violence Prevention and Response Task Force. So the task force met again on February 2nd. The main intention of the meeting was to review a draft survey that was being prepared to be circulated to the campus community. The survey was meant to serve 2 main purposes, basically. One, to get a better understanding of the campus climate regarding sexual violence at UPEI, and 2, also to facilitate some feedback on the policy and procedures that were being developed by the task force. That was something that I know following the open campus consultations that happened back in October. A lot of students were approaching me asking if there were ways that they could provide feedback online, and so we were trying to facilitate that somehow. So after there were, we had some questions and adjustments on some of the specifics in the survey, some larger discussions about kind of the purpose, the scope, the logistics of the survey arose out of those conversations. There were some concerns noted by different members of the task force about some of the explicit detail being asked of respondents in the survey, and also the potential impact of those questions on student safety and student wellness. And this was combined as well with some concerns about also like resource and staffing issues at the university, as they were worried that they might not necessarily have the capacity to properly support an influx of students looking for support during or after filling out the survey. So there were also some questions as well about the purpose of the survey and whether or not it was timely right now. And that's just because the committee basically ended up agreeing that if the purpose is to gain a better understanding of the current campus climate at UPEI regarding sexual violence, and therefore to use that information to inform programming at UPEI, maybe it would be best to wait until the new staff person is hired at the new office, the Sexual Violence Prevention and Response Office. And then once that person is hired, we can kind of revisit the idea of a survey because, given that, the development of prevention and education programming will be specifically under the purview of this staff member, we thought that, it made the most sense to involve them in the survey development process because, it would be perhaps not as helpful if we were to go ahead with this survey now based on what the task force wants to see, and then have this new staff person hired and then come back and say, well, I wish I had information on this, I wish I had information on that, because maybe they need that information to inform that the work that they want to do and the education and prevention programming that they want to develop. It was therefore decided that the task force would postpone the release of this survey and that it would be revisited once the new staff person is hired. Now, this being said, I do completely understand all of those points, and I do agree that that makes sense. But I did raise some concerns that if the task force is not doing this survey, that some sort of online platform for feedback on the policy needs to be facilitated one way or another. And members also begin to discuss whether or not to release the draft policy to the public. And I'm going to continue advocating that the policy be made public before it goes to the Board of Governors to be voted on, and that some more consultation be facilitated. At this point, we've really only had the one in-person campus consultation, and I do have worries about the students who weren't able to attend that day, just anyone who wants to provide feedback and wasn't able to through that route. I know I'm quite confident that we need to be doing more to facilitate feedback in another way. So I'm going to keep advocating that the draft policy be made public, and I'll definitely be providing some updates once I have some confirmation on some of those things. There was an idea thrown out by the task force of having an open task force meeting, which would kind of act as a second session where the public could provide feedback. So that was kind of provided as an alternative. Basically, Jackie Podger and I will be looking further into, those suggestions and also some of the concerns of the task force, and we'll be bringing some suggestions forward for further public consultation before the policy goes to board. So I'll be sure to keep everyone updated on that. In terms of updates on the draft policy in the office, the draft policy is currently being vetted by lawyers. We're hoping to get it back soon. I was told hopefully in the next week or so. So as soon as the policy gets sent back, we will be arranging another meeting of the task force to review the updated policy, and we'll be moving forward there. The current target is to have the new policy to go to the board in March. This is a bit of a short timeline in order to facilitate consultation and whatnot, but we're kind of trying really hard to balance the needs of ensuring that the policy does get put into place this academic year. I do think that's important, but also making sure that we're following due process and that we're giving adequate time for feedback and whatnot. In regards to the new office, Jackie's currently working on the development of a job description for the office's full-time staff member, and is also looking at other institutions and their best practices. And she did say that while the university's budget doesn't get officially approved until May, Jackie's hoping to get the staff position moved up basically on that timeline so that they can be launched at the same time as the policy, which, that makes sense. It's probably the best way to go about things. Ideally we want to have the resource in place as soon as the policy launches. With that, I will move on to discussing the student opinion on teaching surveys and the Enhanced Teaching and Learning Committee and where we're at with that. So the SOT survey was drafted and facilitated by the student union. It closed on January 26th. We had 294 respondents, and right now our policy and research coordinator Colin is currently working on a report to kind of delve deeper into the feedback that was provided in the survey and collecting some data there. I had a meeting with Dr. Gilmore this past Friday where I indicated to him that the SU would like to see another meeting of the Enhanced Teaching and Learning Committee hopefully within the next couple weeks. It's getting pretty late into the year and I really want to keep things moving. So once the report is made, we'll be asking for a meeting. And as soon as the report on the results are finished as well, I'll ensure that information is circulated to people as well so that they're aware of what the findings were. So next topic, I'm going to talk a little bit about experiential learning at UPEI. I had a meeting last week, I think it was, with Bonnie Stewart. She works at I guess you'd call it the Department of Work Integrated Learning at UPEI. So we had a meeting earlier in the year. It would have been early fall, I think. to discuss the projects she and her team are working on following new investments from the province in experiential learning at UPEI. And so we were basically just having a follow-up meeting to discuss where the projects are at now. So much of the discussion involved some brainstorming on the launch of a pilot program that they're looking at. Basically, with this program, to my understanding at least, students would be placed in kind of like job shadow placements and would spend 10 hours per week job shadowing in these positions. So Bonnie was interested in getting our feedback in regards to, how to reach out to students, how, and also like who to involve in the pilot of the program. And basically what my feedback was, because she was trying to determine, are we opening up the pilot program to a huge group of students? Are we opening the project up to certain cohorts for the pilot? And basically what my suggestion was, and I'm open to counselor feedback as well if you maybe don't agree with this, my thinking was that the cohort for the pilot program should be as diverse a group of students as possible, because I think, after you launch the pilot and you want to therefore assess successes and failures, etc., I think it's going to be really important to have a diverse group so that you have a better understanding of what students are benefiting the most from this type of experience. So yeah, that was kind of some of the feedback that I gave, and she was really receptive to that. So of course, these are brainstorming sessions. These are nothing set in stone by any means. So I'll definitely be following up when I have some more information as to exactly what those programs are going to look like, etc. So the last thing I'm going to talk about today has to do with FOIP. For those who don't know, that refers to Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy legislation. So essentially, there were some recent announcements by the government of PEI basically indicating that they are going to be reviewing PEI's Freedom of Information legislation. So we have been looking into what the consultation process is looking like for that review, and how we can be as involved as possible. As a bit of a refresher, a lot of you probably know this, but for those who don't, the UPISU has been advocating since, I think it was 2014, that PEI post-secondary institutions fall under Freedom of Information legislation, because we don't right now. Every other province in the entire country has their post-secondary institutions under the Freedom of Information legislation, and that's honestly because universities receive so much public funding. It's our right to have access to information as to where that money's going, and be able to use those checks and balances to get information when we want it or need it. So Colin, our policy and research coordinator, is currently doing some preliminary work and some research to prepare for a government submission that we're working on. So the deadline that has been provided for submissions is February 23rd. It's indicated that you can either mail or email your submission. So we'll be doing ours by email, I guess. But honestly, we haven't been super happy with the consultation process that's been laid out with government in regards to this review. It's not very transparent. We don't know who the government's meeting with. We don't know who's providing submissions, who's saying what. Basically, there's just not a clear picture of who's advocating for what. And we want to make sure that if that side of the process isn't transparent, that we're being as transparent as possible on our end. I want students to know where the UPISU stands and what we're advocating for, and so we will be making our submission public. I had some conversations with Fallon, but it'll probably be posted on the website or something like that. And FOIP as well will also be a main topic of a lot of our discussions in upcoming lobby meetings. While it isn't necessarily a policy priority that was set out for this year, we have to be cognizant of what's topical right now, and we really have to utilize this opportunity to to push this as much as we can and to have as much say as we possibly can, because we don't know when the next opportunity will be to change this legislation. So yeah, that's going to be a main focus over the next couple months, the submission first and then kind of the lobby meetings following. But that is kind of an overview of what has been happening in the VPAX office for the last 2 weeks. If there's any questions or concerns, you can always get a hold of me, vpax@upisu.ca. And of course, I believe that we're going to be circulating some sort of format for people to submit questions about our reports or whatever else online. So we'll be answering those as they come forward. But you guys know where to find me. Room 207 in Student Center if you ever want to chat, or shoot me an email. Okay, thanks guys.